that happening?
Is that Cathy Dickens? It is. I haven't seen her.
Who's giving?
Sky. If she's here.
Oh, here. All right. Good morning, everyone. Chilly fall morning, where we will begin our service with Prelude, played by Susan Adams. I will offer some words of welcome, and there will be announcements. Then there will be a testimonial and an invocation. After which, Mitch will light the chalice, or you will not light the chalice. You will offer chalice lighting words. I will light the chalice. There will be a mission statement. Mitch will share some opening words, and the opening hymn will be the South Church Choir. Yeah. And then there'll be a time for all ages. There'll be a children's recessional, and then an offering. After that, Susan will play an offertory. And then there'll be a response, during which we will give thanks.
Is that their singing?
So you're playing from over there. The choir's just going to stand and face the congregation.
After that moment, I will offer a prayer and a meditation. People will be invited to Candles of Joy and Concern. I will offer a sermon. And after the sermon, there will be a closing hymn, which will be the choir. So the choir will be gathering your way up here when I finish. The choir will lead the congregation in this joy. And then, hey, hi, you're just in time for the fun.
You made it to circle up.
Sweet.
And you don't have to do anything. You can just start speaking.
Are you going to do announcements like right here somewhere?
But you'll be up there.
I got it.
She's going to ban it.
I'm all good.
She's going to ban it. You just have to start speaking.
I can push a button if I have to.
Yeah. And after the choir sings, Mitch will offer Extinguishing the Chalice words. I will extinguish the chalice. I will offer a benediction. Then I will come down to the floor and join the choir, who will be up here during the entire benediction, Extinguishing the Chalice piece. And then we'll sing 2 songs, and then Mitch and I will scoot our way down the middle aisle, hopefully before people get up and do the song. So, does anybody have questions?
Yeah, looks good.
What mic am I using then?
Kirsten has a question.
I'll use a wireless. Is both out? Or will
We
both
have,
be out wired?
I'm not sure, but I know I only saw them using the mic.
B?
I don't need it for anything.
Okay, and so you'll be using that for announcements and for the... Great. So we answered our one question, and now we can sink into the present moment. Relax your shoulders if you can. Relax your muscles a little bit, not completely. Stay standing. Take a deep conscious breath. Close your eyes if that feels comfortable. Allow yourself to be in your body in this moment, this special moment here together in this space, in anticipation to offer something to the people here, to allow something to enter us, fill us, special hour with one another today. Amen.
Is this stuff going to stay up? Is there a move away process?
Yeah, we kind of have. Sorry. Our plan is to move it at the beginning of Time for All Ages, and then we move back after.
This is for last Sunday. Those immigration panels are going to be up, down the stairs. I've got to get them. It's underneath the things. I'm not sure why. I don't feel we've done much to raise the consciousness about that.
Yeah,
Could I say something, or would you say something?
Kirsten can say one sentence about the immigration panels downstairs. They're going to be here for just one more. This is the last Sunday.
I need to get them back to Durham Community Church, and they are a terrific summary of history of immigration in the United States with a lot of surprising things, such as it wasn't until 1924 that Native Americans got to be citizens.
There's not a blurb about them?
No, we have not promoted it well at all. Every time I go down there, somebody shoved chairs up against half the panels, and I move them all over to a place that's blank, where they could just see something big and they get shoved. Anyway, that's not as important as I think I need to get them back to your community.
Okay. I will mention them.
You could say last week, possibly 1 week more, but I haven't gotten over Thistle.
And when and if you do a project like that again,
Do we keep one candle in the middle for me?
Did you get your release off okay?
Yeah.
Just one.
Just because the lights are available. So I can a little bit later. The volume was
Maybe you.
Yeah, we tried to take some photos. Yeah. It's just it gets piano moving. And then it just sounds like
Good morning, everyone. I am Reverend Ellen Quaadgras, and I serve here at South Church with Kirsten Hunter, our Director of Lifespan Ministries, and I serve in co-ministry with all of you as we care for one another within these walls and work to make a difference in the world beyond them. It is good to be with all of you online. It is good to be with all of you here in the sanctuary, where we welcome everyone of every religious background or belief, where we welcome you wherever you are on your path in this life or on this day. We welcome you, whatever is on your heart or on your mind. You are all welcome here. Every week we begin our service by naming those who stewarded the land upon which this sanctuary was built long before this congregation was here. Let us recognize the love and care with which the people of the Pennacook and Abenaki nations tended this land. We also acknowledge the long and difficult history of their unwilling displacement due to colonization and all that it brought. May we continue growing our awareness and understanding of this history so that we might be more able to restore right relationship and better live our UU values of working for justice in the present. As we enter a brand new month, and anticipate a brand new turning point in the history of this country on Tuesday, our theme appropriately is the practice of repair. It is no secret that we are living in divided times. No matter what happens this coming week, repair, healing will be called for. How do we prepare ourselves for this threshold moment? How can we find our center, our ground, our serenity, and perhaps even our joy, no matter what happens on Tuesday? That said, the practice of repair, the healing of our souls, and the tending of our world goes beyond Tuesday, goes deeper than politics, is bigger than this election, and there are many ways to practice leaning into that larger healing. As everyone is invited into a tangible lived experience of your faith this year, you will see you've received a brand new list of ideas for practice on this card. Feel free to use them as is, modify them as you like, come up with your own as you feel moved, and in case you want more ideas or details on any of these, use the QR code or the link at the bottom for more details and a couple of fun short videos to tell you more about how it all works. And yes, indeed, not only was I a gold star for Halloween, but I will again be handing them out at coffee hour, along with Pam Lehman, who is here somewhere and will be downstairs helping with that. All of that is to affirm any effort you are making toward living your values and growing your spirit in the way you feel called today. I'm glad to be here this morning with Mitch Pivor. Our worship associate, Eric Lipsitt, will be offering our stewardship testimonial. Ben Abbott and Jen Layden are making this service accessible online. Music will be offered by our fabulous South Church Choir, directed by Jonny Peiffer, as well as Susan Adams on piano. Kirsten Hunter will be offering our time for all ages, after which our young ones are invited to join our religious education opportunities downstairs. Parents, please sign your young one in if you haven't already. Please join us for coffee hour after the service, where the question you are invited to ponder with someone you do not know well today is, on the theme of repair, can duct tape really, truly fix anything? More to the point, what have you managed to repair with it? What might you fix if you had a duct tape repair superpower? So you can think on those questions. There are large print hymnals in the back, assistive listening devices there also. Ask an usher if you need assistance. Please silence your cell phone if you have one. And it is now time for some announcements.
Good morning, good morning. Nice to see everyone this morning. I'm Kirsten Hunter. I have a couple announcements for us this morning. One is I hope your social calendars are already booked for November 16th for the auction here. It's a Saturday night. There will be a wine social and auction. The auction committee has been gathering so many incredible items, and I hope that everyone will be there with me and the whole auction committee and so many others for that joyful occasion. We'll gather up a lot of gifts for the holidays and be done with our shopping by the end of the night. That's my plan. There are two offerings happening this coming week around the election. One is an event that Reverend Ellen and I have been working with the Seacoast Ministerium to plan at 7 p.m. at the African Burial Ground on Tuesday night, on election night. The polls will close, and people are invited to come and gather for a half an hour of reflection and music. The event is titled Held in One Spirit, and we hope you will join us. And then the following day, on Wednesday, we will have the sanctuary open for anyone who wants to just come and be in the space. There'll be candles to be lit, and some members of the staff will be here from 8 in the morning until 6 at night. So please know that those things are here for you as we come into this week. And please read your order of service, because there's so much more to find out about South Church in this lovely little pamphlet. Is Cindy Brown here? I don't see her. All right, we're going to hold off on, we're going to be celebrating Cindy Brown next week, don't tell her. And we're going to make her get here, but Eric will go next. Oh, sorry. There are downstairs some really incredible panels of information about the history of immigration in our country that have been put together by the Social Justice Associates. They will be here this Sunday, maybe next Sunday, but they have to be returned, and they're really fantastic. So please stop in the room with the big sliding barn door near the kitchen and check those out.
My wife Tracy and I first walked through those doors in January of 1999. Our now 27-year-old daughter was not yet 2, and our now 24-year-old son wasn't even born yet. To this day, I still remember the sermon Reverend Marta Flanagan gave that day. The reasons why I remember it so much is probably for a longer conversation. Let's just say it resonated with a kid who had grown up without any kind of formal religion. Tracy stayed in the nursery that service, and afterwards I remember telling her that I felt like Reverend Marta was speaking directly to me. Here's the thing. That sermon is simply the first of many that have resonated with me and that I continue to remember to this day. Over the course of the last 25 years or so, we have constantly been volunteering our time here at church. We have taught RE classes. We have been part of a ministerial search committee. We've hosted covenant groups. We've been on the committee on ministry, the ABC, the Capital Campaign. We've been on the board of trustees. We've been worship associates, pastoral associates, and fellowship associates, just to name a few. South Church is our spiritual home, and it's a central part of our lives. It has been an instrumental part of the education and the maturation process of our kids. It has been a source of some of our closest friendships. Over the course of all of those years, not only have we attended, participated, volunteered, and been in community with all of you, but we have made a financial pledge. Like many, our pledge history has directly correlated with the financial times in our household. Our pledge amount started with some small number that was a stretch goal for us that was divided into 12 monthly payments. We tried to give more each year depending on how we were doing with our circumstances. There was the one year when I lost my job and we still made our pledge. Then there was another year when I lost my job again and we didn't make our pledge. There were those years when the kids were in college and pledging was not to be as much. And now at this stage in our lives, we are blessed that we can give a little bit more. In our humble opinion, this is the best overall staff that South Church has had in that 25 years. There have been good ministers and not so good ministers. There have been previous DREs that have been just as fantastic as the current one, and so on. But in totality, the staff that we have right now is simply the best. We all know that the majority of the yearly operating budget is used for compensation for our staff. We are all blessed to be attending South Church at a time when we have this staff, and I want to make sure that all of them are paid a fair and competitive wage. So if I may, let me speak for just a moment to a couple different pledge groups that might be out here. To those of you who do not participate in the annual pledge campaign, whether you are a member of South Church or simply a friend, there is a huge difference between something and nothing. Regardless of how often you come on a Sunday, whether it's all the time or once in a while, if you consider South Church to be your spiritual home, then please pledge. The act of giving an annual pledge will make you feel much more invested in our spiritual community. To those of you who are blessed to be in a better financial position than maybe you were in years past, I challenge you to rethink your pledge. Whether you evaluate it as a percentage of your income or some other measure that you use, please do not think of South Church as simply a charity. It's not. It is your spiritual home. And maybe, just maybe, increase that pledge. And to all the rest of you that are somewhere in between those other two groups, please give whatever you can. I am certain that if everyone here simply gave whatever they possibly could, it will be more than enough. South Church is the beacon of liberal religion here on the seacoast. It is so important to Tracy and I that South Church continues to be that beacon for liberal religion that welcomes anyone that wants to walk through those doors. And to me, this means we have a responsibility to pledge something every year. Thanks.
I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? As we light our chalice today, we invite people watching at home and here to light a candle or chalice of their own. And with these words, with lighting of their chalice, by Valerie Kaur. From her book, See No Stranger, a memoir and manifesto of revolutionary love, our South Church common read for this year. Joy is possible even amid great labors, the labor of dying, the labor of birthing, and the labors in between. In the face of horrors visited upon our world daily, in the struggle to protect our loved ones, choosing to let in joy is a revolutionary act. Joy returns us to everything good and beautiful and worth fighting for. It gives us energy for the long labor. I believe laboring in joy is the meaning of life. Now please rise and join us, if you are able and willing, in reciting our mission statement printed in the order of service. At South Church, we nurture spiritual growth through worship, learning, and community. We celebrate the worth and dignity of all people, and we inspire one another to act on our faith in the larger community. Good morning. Today, I speak about keeping my faith in hope. Hope rather than disillusionment, disappointment, discouragement. These are the thoughts in my mind as the presidential election looms in 2 days. Will it be a vote for electing the first woman president, a president of color, a person of freedom, of choice, acceptance, equity, inclusion, and progressiveness? Or will it be a vote for a person who speaks the rhetoric that fuels unacceptance and hate, electing a person who speaks of deportation, limiting freedoms, limiting choice, speaks of violence and authoritarian autocracy? I ask, how does one deal with the fear of what may occur, the feeling of helplessness, of outcomes that may take us backwards, and how does one put in perspective that our fellow citizens are split in this election? Reverend Ellen speaks about spiritual practice to keep hope, to search our minds towards a hopeful vision using spiritual practice, supporting one another, and to inspire one another. We are here together. But I ask myself, how does one believe and keep hope that tomorrow's can be better than today's, that progressiveness will win over autocracy, that our children, with their crying, gives us hope, that equity, justice, inclusion, and progressiveness will occur? For me, I find hope in the solace of history. I'm a PBS and NPR buff and love history programs. These help me give me perspective. In the words of biographer Doris Kearns Goodwin, history can give us a sense of hope and solace because it allows us to see that we have been through tough times before and we can learn from them, providing perspective on current challenges. This is also well stated by Rucker Breckman, author of Humankind, A Hopeful History. He writes, "The milestones of civilization that have occurred were once just thought to be utopian fantasies: democracy, equal rights, end of slavery. All these milestones had steps backward and then forward, but the forward steps of progressiveness continues to go forward. And most of all, he emphasizes people are decent, that history demonstrates that us humans 97% of the time support each other, especially in hard times. This has been demonstrated many times, especially in disasters. People help people, no matter their politics or differences. but politics can rev people into directions that is difficult to witness. And so I remind myself that most people are good and decent. Many times, most are voting for other issues and not for the political rhetoric. And I keep hope that decency overcomes the rhetoric. As we face the election of uncertainty and where our society is currently, and the possibility that we may be stepping backwards for now, I look at our own American history to give me hope. What the generations before us fought for and then came to pass in future generations. Progress can seem so slow, but it occurs. One example is voting rights that have been gained through generations, from just white male landowners having the vote at the birth of this nation 250 years ago, to the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that citizens of any creed or color cannot be denied the right to vote. There are many other examples of rights won over the generations, and many examples, unfortunately, of these rights being suppressed. But in history and time shows us that progressiveness overcomes suppression. That despite continued attempts to take our control over our vote, our bodies, or who we are, or who we marry. And who would have thought that today there's a good chance that this nation may elect a woman president of color, something that just one generation ago was very, very hard to imagine. So I find hope in history and human decency, in the history of progressiveness winning over autocracy, and that people overwhelmingly have been shown to be decent, and that our current generations can help future generations go forward. So let us support each other in these unpredictable times, help each other keep hope and optimism for the future, help each other appear in faith and hope when we feel hopeless. For with hope, we can continue a commitment to go forward, and the world would be a better place. May it come to be. Thank you.
going to invite anybody who would like to hear a story from a little closer up to come and do so. Can come right up here to the floor by me. No pressure, but sometimes it's fun to move our bodies, be somewhere else in the church. In his opening words, Mitch mentioned the Voters' Rights Act of 1965, and the story that I'm telling today is about a person who was one of the people who was really impactful in making that happen. This is a small picture, so those of you up front can see it. His name is John Lewis. Who's ever heard of John Lewis? I see a lot of older folks in here who know who John Lewis was. We should all know who John Lewis was, because John Lewis was just a really incredible leader in our country. And he was a young person in 1965 fighting for civil rights. But shortly after that, he began to run for elected office, and he served as a congressman for over 30 years. I think actually maybe over 35, a really long time. Now, John Lewis wrote a book when he was older called a memoir. Who knows what a memoir is? Does anyone know? What is it? Yeah, I've heard of it too. Sometimes I'm like, what is that? I don't know what that is. But a memoir is when someone writes about their memories, writes about their life and the stories of their life. And he wrote a memoir about his life, which is really worth reading. It's called Walking with the Wind. And the title references a story he tells in the book about when he was a child. So when John Lewis was a child, much like these children up here, he loved to play with other kids. And John Lewis had a lot of kids in his life. He had siblings and cousins that lived nearby and friends in the town. And they would play all the time, running around together, a whole pack of them. And one day, as they were playing near his aunt's house, a big storm rolled in. And when the big storm rolled in, it came in fast, and it looked really dangerous. It wasn't the kind of storm that you were like, ooh, there's a storm. It was the kind of storm that you were like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And his Aunt Seneva was her name, called all of the kids inside her house. There was 15 of them. And Aunt Seneva did not have a big house, but they all came huddling inside. They could tell that this storm was dangerous. And these kids who had been playing and rolling around and making noise all were really quiet because they were scared of what this storm might bring. And they were huddled together in the house. And as they were huddled together in the house, the wind picked up and the rain was pelting. And the actual house started lifting off the ground. From where they were sitting, they could see the corner of the room where it was actually pulling up off the floor. And Aunt Seneva looked at those children and she said, "Follow my directions. All of you hold hands with each other, hold close, and walk with me." And Aunt Seneva and 15 kids walked to the corner of the house that was pulling off of its foundation to keep it down. And then as the storm continued and they saw it happening in another corner of the house, the 16 of them walked hand in hand, held together to the next corner in the house. And throughout that whole storm, they had no idea whether that house was going to take off or stay on the ground. But they were huddled together and they were working together and they kept the house on the ground. When John Lewis was writing his book, so this is years and years later, he reflected on this. And I'm going to read his words. He says, "More than half a century has passed since that day, and it has struck me more than once over these many years that our society is not unlike the children in that house, rocked again and again by the winds of one storm or another. The walls around us seem at times as if they might fly apart. It seemed that way in the 1960s, at the height of the civil rights movement, when America itself felt as if it might burst at its seams. So much tension, so many storms. But the people of conscience never left the house. They never ran away. They stayed, they came together, they did the best they could, clasping hands and moving toward the corner of the house that was the weakest. And then another corner would lift, and we would go there. And eventually, inevitably, the storm would settle, and the house would still stand. But we knew another storm would come, and we would have to do it over again, and we did, and we still do. All of us, you and I, children, holding hands, walking with the wind. And I just love that story, but I also love thinking about this church and all of the people in it, and imagining the power we have to hold hands and walk from corner to corner of the house and shore it up and hold it down and weather the storm together. What a blessing. Thank you guys for coming up front, and any young people who want to head down can hold hands and walk with the wind.
Each week at the Offertory, we give as we are able to support South Church. During this month, our collection will be shared with Mainspring, the Seacoast Social Service Collective, serving Seacoast, New Hampshire, and Maine, is a building of a stronger community by providing all citizens with the resources to thrive. Through a centralized and collaborative model incorporating many area social service partners, Mainspring offers a dignified, efficient, and effective model of care that empowers individuals to navigate a pathway out of poverty. And you can find more information on the website, but we also have John Shea, who's very involved in this organization, downstairs to help further give you insight about this wonderful organization. And now we bring forth our contributions as we listen to Susan Adams' music.
Let us gather our hearts and minds in a spirit of prayer or meditation. Spirit of life, presence that flows through us all. We gather here with hearts both light and heavy, carrying blessings and burdens intertwined, knowing that joy and sorrow are woven fine, not opposites, but so often companions with us, living side by side. In the deep well of life from which we drink, we find moments of joy, the simple pleasure of trick-or-treating children, the warmth of a friend's hand when words fall short, the vibrant colors of autumn trees, the spark of laughter that rises unexpectedly, reminding us we're not alone. And yet from that same well of life, we also find sorrow, the uncertainty of illness, the ache of loss, the pain of dreams deferred or broken, the weight of worry for loved ones, for our communities, for a world in turmoil. As we approach this election, we feel the tension of what lies ahead. The hopes we hold, the fears we face. For many, the stakes are high and woven into daily life. Health, safety, dignity, the right to be seen and heard and respected. For all of us, the question of the common good, of a justice that remains elusive. Help us hold the tension and know the need for compassion and courage. May we draw strength from the poignancy of being in this together. May we know that we share our joys and our sorrows side by side. Amen. In the music that follows, you are invited to take in this time and place to reflect, to pray, or meditate on what is in your heart this morning. You are invited, if you like, to light a candle for a joy or sorrow you are experiencing. You can come around to the outside. As always, Kirsten or I welcome hearing from you about whatever is happening in your life, the hard and the good. And we are always here to help, as are the pastoral associates. Please do reach out after the service if you need something from any of us. Let us take this time to reflect. for all the candles that were lit, and for all the joys and sorrows that were held in the quiet of our hearts. May we draw strength from each other, knowing that our joys are made brighter and our sorrows more bearable when we share them together. Let us walk forward with open hearts, holding the fullness of life's fabric as Spirit weaves joy and sorrow together. That same Spirit holding us all today and every day. Amen. So there are a few political signs out these days, one or two, you may have noticed them. On my way through the traffic circle in Kittery a few weeks ago, one particularly stood out to me. Demi, it said in large block letters with a little star over the eye. Maybe you've seen that one too. I instantly flashed back to Demi Moore, major movie star back when I was coming of age in the 80s. She was attractive, compelling, strong. She could do one-armed push-ups like nobody's business. I immediately wanted to vote for her. I mean, I did know it's not the same person, but some part of me wanted to be positively disposed to her anyway. It took a second for the realization to hit me as I witnessed myself motivated by this absurdly random association with a political candidate. I could no longer separate myself from the masses of people whose voting choices make no logical sense to me. I didn't like that because I prefer to see myself as logical and orderly. I so want this election to be logical and orderly. Actually, I want everything to be logical and orderly. It makes me feel safe. But things do not feel logical and orderly right now. I see many of you working on this election, postcard writing, phone banking, poll watching, and so many other efforts to bolster and safeguard democracy in this election. And I do hope you are all planning to vote, and I encourage everyone you know to do the same. And I've been thinking about how to shore us up today for outcomes that may be different from what you or I might be hoping for. More than one person has told me they are feeling their sense of security shaken in this lead up. Some people have said they're feeling distracted or unfocused. Someone said they're having trouble sleeping. Another told me their stomach has been in knots for weeks. Things do not feel logical and orderly for many of us right now. I read an interview with Steve Bannon a few weeks ago in which he said something to the effect of not being particularly interested in rational conversation, logical conversation, and he, by implication, his people, were not particularly looking for reasonable dialogue. We, he said, are looking to win. We are not really interested in the rules. You have to understand, he said, trying to help us understand. This is a street fight. Now, as a rule-loving, order-appreciating person who does not love conflict generally, I didn't like that either. If you're gonna fight, at least be nice about it. But maybe that interview, along with a desire to help curb further disorder in the future, was what prompted me to take some action and see what I could do. I decided to go door knocking, which, by the way, I had never done before. But Janet Pulaski, who was willing to come with me, and we two kindly looking, not particularly fight-ready looking ladies, headed out to talk to some Newington voters about how and why they might vote. In spite of our harmless church lady vibe, or maybe because of it, we managed to finagle our way into 2 locked buildings and up a key-protected elevator. I was feeling pretty good about that until someone actually answered a door that we knocked on. As that door opened a crack, all I could see at first was a very large German shepherd straining against its leash toward us, and then the face of a man whose expression I could not read. I got a little nervous. I backed up, at which point Janet jumped in and said whatever it was we were supposed to be saying to someone who does open a door. I don't remember what he said next, something about not being a Democrat. And I don't remember what we said next because I was no longer sure this was all that good of an idea. What I do remember is that when his girlfriend's face suddenly peeked out from behind his head, my whole experience changed. Was it that she playfully told us she had been trying to convince him to vote exactly the values we were talking about? Was it her tone? Was it her gender? Was it the sheepish look that man got on his face when she was saying all this? I don't know. But it suddenly became this oddly sweet human interaction. Almost joyful. That was memorable experience number 1. Memorable experience number 2 was another gentleman near the end of our route who told us he had voted Republican in the 2016 elections and was frustrated because his candidate had not been able to follow through on more of his campaign promises. This young man told us what he thought we really needed was a monarchy. That was interesting. But he did not have a giant dog, and he didn't say anything about a street fight, so I decided to lean in and listen. He talked about how hard he felt it was to get anything done locally. He talked about wanting to be more connected and know that he had been heard. He told us he thought the system was broken. I have to say, I could not argue with that. By the end of the conversation, he actually took some of our materials, and I was reminded why the practice of deep listening came before the practice of repair in our order of themes this congregational year. These interactions and the dozen or so that Janet and I had reminded me that while this is all about the election, it is also about so much more than just the election. For various people on various sides, this is about frustration, fear, uncertainty, anger, communication or lack of it, belonging or lack of it, and whether and how we listen to each other. It's about the kind of trust we can build that lets one person playfully nudge another to think more deeply. It's about human interactions that invite us each to imagine differently. And it's about how we might love one another regardless of who is in office. Because, as I've heard from some segment of our population and from a large segment of our world, how much is the current rule of law really working for everyone anyway? And what do we do about that? So while the order I have always known is being threatened and I don't like it, and while our system looks broken to many people from many different angles, it seems none of us really know what to do about it. Or maybe we do. On Tuesday, Kirsten and I attended the trial of the Mother's Day 5 at Dover District Court. They are a core group from the New Hampshire Coalition for Peace and Justice in the Middle East who had made repeated and reasonable attempts to invite one of their representatives, whose job it is to listen to constituents. They had invited this rep to respond to their concerns about his stance on the war in Gaza. When those invitations to be in reasoned conversation were repeatedly denied or ignored, they chose to remain in his office on Mother's Day of last year as an act of civil disobedience. They were arrested and taken away, and on this day were standing trial in court. The group of their supporters was so large we could not all fit in the courtroom, so I found myself standing outside passing time with someone I had never met. Making small talk, he described for me a recent trip to Paris and a landmark he had visited there. It was a wall upon which was written the quote, "Love creates disorder. Therefore, let us love." At first, I confess, I was confused by this, or maybe I just didn't like it. As I mentioned, I don't like disorder, and I do not equate disorder or chaos with love. I like to imagine love creating order. I like to imagine love keeping me safe, like a mother protecting her child. Neither the statement nor his enthusiasm for it made much sense to me. His repeating it in French did not help. But then, after sitting with it a moment, I realized, oh, wait, of course, think about it. When you are falling in love with someone, you throw all kinds of things out the window. You're like, that thing I thought was so important to do in my schedule today, never mind, I'm going out with you, we're going to dinner, we're going to the park, I have all the time in the world for you. Love can disorder your priorities in this really beautiful, human-centered way. And while, as mentioned, it did take a minute, I realized this man was talking about this because this group, these Mother's Day 5, were reordering their priorities, reordering their lives from a really human-centered place, acting from the heart of their conscience, from their personal connection to people who are suffering. They were creating this loving disorder of civil disobedience, and it was beautiful. So love can create good disorder, good chaos, good trouble, as John Lewis used to say. And in fact, using strategies from deep in the civil rights era that Mitch referred to and that Kirsten talked about, these kinds of strategies can turn a street fight into a holy fight. Jiu-jitsu moves that take the negative energy coming toward you and turn it into momentum for good. How might we take the disorder we witness in the world today and turn it into momentum for good? How might we, like in our Time for All Ages story, be the people of conscience who come together and do the best we can, clasping hands and moving toward where we are needed most, who stay in it no matter what? This is about more than the election. And while fear can get us moving for a little while in prep for that one day, it cannot keep us going. Fear cannot sustain us. We get to bring love. We get to find new energy for the coming weeks and months, no matter what happens this week. And so I turn to those who know something about the long haul, people for whom the world has never been a safe and ordered place anyway, people who know something about the power of resilience, of community, and the power of joy to sustain both. People like Dr. Imani Perry, who gave the Ware Lecture at last year's General Assembly, who told us in her talk that her elders taught her that she belonged to a tradition of resilience, of music that resonates across the globe, of spoken and written language that sings. If you've had the good fortune to experience a holiday with a large Black family, she said, you have witnessed the masterful art of storytelling, the vitality of our laughter, and the everyday poetry of our experience. And the narrative boils down quite simply to this, she says, we are still here, praise life. After everything, we are still here. Joy, she goes on, is not found in the absence of pain and difficulty. It exists through it. Joy through music and song, joy through shared holidays and laughter, resilience through storytelling and the poetry of experience, joy even through pain and suffering, joy an integral part of resilience, inseparable from it, so we can be in it for the long haul, no matter what. And then these words from Valerie Kaur, Sikh American whose community also did not experience safety after 9/11, whose words we heard in our chalice lighting, who wrote our common read for this year about revolutionary love. Here are the words she said that inspire me, that as we heard, joy is possible even amid great labors, the labor of dying, the labor of birthing, and all the labors in between. We cannot force it, but when we create moments to breathe between labor pains and surrender our senses to the present moment, notice the colors and light and feeling of being alive, here, together, joy comes more easily. In the face of horrors visited upon the world daily, she writes, in the struggle to protect our loved ones, choosing to let in joy is a revolutionary act. Joy returns us to everything good and beautiful and worth fighting for, gives us energy for the long labor, and joy, she says, is laboring in joy, she says, is the meaning of life. May we let joy in, she concludes, for we will be someone's ancestors one day. If we do this right, they will inherit not our fear, but bravery born of joy. No matter what happens on November 5th, there's work to do to heal our divisions, to turn negative momentum around, to clasp hands and breathe through it, to find love to guide us, hope to sustain us, and joy to connect us to our resilience and the deep well of our strength. May that be so. Amen. And let us join to sing together in our closing hymn, which will be led by the South Church Choir. The words are in your order of service. Please rise in body or in spirit.
World did give it to me. This joy that I
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
May we let joy in. May we let strength in. May we let love guide us. May we remind each other of these. May we support each other, clasp hands with each other in these times, knowing that joy creates resilience and sustains us for the long haul. And should the songs we sing fall silent in some sobering moment this coming week or any week, let us sing our song to one another. For we will be someone's ancestors one day. If we do this right, they will inherit not our fear, but bravery born of joy. May it be so.